We, the thing says we are live and in person. Thank you so much for being here. Glad you are here. Hope you're having a great week. To the coolest people on the face of the earth, that is you. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
So today's subject, I actually wanted to do something because we've been getting a lot of questions about this lately as it pertains to, hey, I'm setting up a new tank. What can I do in terms of getting it to cycle to make it safe for fish? Is there ways to speed it up? When it comes to using filter media, how do I do that if it's coming from a different tank? And so we're going to address all of those things. I'm hoping that it's not going to be a long, drawn-out thing, but that is, at least that's the plan. That's the subject for today. And I know you've got a lot to talk about when it comes to that too, don't you?
You're just going to have to shut me up.
Well, the thing is you're probably at this point, at least in the last year, you've set up like 50,000 times more tanks than I have, because I've set up exactly 0, and you've set up all of them, I think, right?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Because, well, think about it. You've done all the YouTube studio, which, by the way, we have a new tank back there. We'll talk more about that in a second. So you've done the entire YouTube studio. You did your nano wall. Mm-hmm. Anytime that there is a rescape going on, that's you, right? So
But it was already set up, though.
No, that's true. But still, you've set up all the tanks.
Yeah.
You're the tank setter-upper. I'm the I didn't do it. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Real quick, though, before we get into all the stuff. A couple things. Thank you to all the moderators that are here. Wendy, I see Finn Wiggles. I see Dave from Iowa. Dave from Iowa, I do want to point out that I just saw a note that his son was in a car accident, I believe. Not hurt, but the car's messed up. I hope everything's okay. And it's good to hear that there were no injuries there. So I'm glad you're here. If you have to go, obviously, we send you all of our best and prayers and things. Hopefully everything is okay. So announcements. Monday, we did the discus versus severums video. You didn't know what we did you? You forgot again.
I always do. It seems like a world between Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks go by in those 2 days. But that's what we did. We did a discus versus severums. So if you think you might be interested in them, or you just have an opinion, check that video out. Your video today was really cool because you did your namesake, and that is you aquascaped.
I did a small scape.
You did a small. Where is that small scape?
Right back there.
Right? Is your head kind of blocking it? Go
Probably.
like this. Yeah, come towards me. Yeah. So that's the scape right there. We were having, like, right before the live stream issues because you set it up. So we used the studio table. And I think, didn't you even have like a little spinny guy?
I did. I was pulling out the really fancy stuff.
Yeah. So you scaped that whole thing. We had the light on. And then we discovered after the fact that when you put the tank actually back there, we didn't quite have the clearance that we needed for the light that we were using in the actual video, but we kind of do. So I don't know if you saw, but I kind of...
Oh, I see what you did.
Yeah, I figured it out. We're going to have to refigure it at some point, but at least we can see the tank. So if you want to see that aquascape on the small scape, her channel, go check that out. That was the one that came out today. Tomorrow is Thursday, so we'll have our members only video. Got some cool things to talk about. And I actually have a cool thing to show you that, well, we kind of sort of got in today, but it wasn't 100% right. So we're going to kind of get some other stuff in a couple weeks, but you will be the first to see what's happening there. Friday, got a really cool species profile for you of a fish that I really like in a tank. That was amazing to see. It's not my tank, but it was really cool. And then you've got your special goodness coming up on Saturday, right? On the small scape?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be old school Saturday.
Small
scape Saturday.
Old school small scape Saturday.
Fun tip for you.
And that should be really interesting. Now, we've got some things coming up, too. So it's hard to believe because we just got back from Aquashella, it seems like yesterday, but it was over a week ago. But we are headed back out next weekend. We're going to be going to the Ohio Cichlid Association, the OCA Extravaganza, and you've never been there.
I haven't.
So the big giant flea market sort of meets convention, meets awesome speakers. And I'm not one of them, but trust me, the people that they have doing the presentations are top notch. That I spent a lot of time in the presentation room the last time I was there. But we're going to be there to hang out with all of you. So hopefully you get a chance to do that. That's in Strongsville, Ohio. And then the next thing after that in December is we have the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association Swap Meet. That's
Those are
December.
fun.
Yep, December the 12th. So stop by if you're in the Chicagoland area. Say hello. That usually brings in people from all over the place, Wisconsin and Illinois and Indiana. We've had people come from Kentucky and Ohio and all kinds of places. So it's well worth the trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, I don't know how many of you know this. It's not even on the website yet. And I think I posted it on Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram at primetime_aquatics, I posted the Aquashella schedule for 2022. So if you don't know,
Yippee.
I believe this is official, even though the website hasn't been updated. Aquashella Orlando is actually going to be in February. It's February the 26th and the 27th. That's pretty cool. In fact, I think that kind of makes, weather-wise, that makes a little bit more sense than having it in June. So for those of you who live in the cooler states, you're like, I would really like some Florida warmth. Well, now you have an excuse to go to Florida in the end of February, at the end of February. And then Dallas, now that got moved to August. So, all right, so we moved Florida out of June and into February.
Wow.
And then we took Dallas, which was just, a couple weeks ago, but they moved that up. I think it was just a place, the place that we were at was really cool. And so the availability was, I'm guessing, was in Dallas, was early in August. I think that's the 6th and the 7th. And then Chicago as we move back to October 8th and 9th. So
get to see some nice fall colors.
Yes, hoping to see all of you at the Aquashellas, or at least hopefully you can show up to one of them. So yeah, you have anything you want to add to the announcements before we dive right into our topic of the night?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Anytime.
So, like I said, we get a lot of questions on how do we cycle tanks quickly. We set up a lot of tanks, and you'll notice in our videos, there's no waiting period. And we try to, as best we can, when we set, I know you did a good job of this even today, we try to explain, okay, why is it that we're setting up a tank and immediately things are going in? So there's a number of different ways that you can get a tank ready for fish. And when we say cycling a tank, what we mean by that, it's not actually the full cycle, the nitrogen cycle that we're accomplishing. It's basically just one part of it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure the beneficial bacteria are established in a fish tank so that when we add fish, their waste products get converted to progressively less toxic things. So real quick before we get into how to cycle the tank, fish produce primarily ammonia through their waste products and through their gills. That ammonia is toxic to fish, and so there are beneficial bacteria that eventually get established in the tank that convert the ammonia to nitrite. Nitrite is also toxic to fish. There are other microbes that convert the nitrite to nitrate. That's far less toxic, and for the most part what people do is they do water changes to control the amount of nitrate in an aquarium. Typically for us, our goal is to try to keep it around 20 parts per million or less in a non-planted tank. If it goes a little higher in a planted tank, that's okay. Once we start getting into that 40 parts per million or above, it's like, okay, we got to do something about this. That's a little bit too high for our comfort level. You can add plants to keep that lower, but what we're talking about today is, okay, well, how do we get that ammonia to nitrate process complete so that we don't have any ammonia, we don't have any nitrite, and all we have is nitrate? When we have that situation, that's telling us that our tank is ready for fish. So 0 ammonia, 0 nitrite, some registrable amount of nitrate. Okay, so there's a number of ways you can do this. Old school way, before we knew a whole lot about fish keeping, was you took some fish and you threw them in a brand new tank. Within about 5 to 7 days, you start to see the fish are struggling in some way, shape, or form because the ammonia concentrations are starting to build in that aquatic environment. It's damaging their gills. It's making them hard just to live life. Often, you're going to lose some of those fish. And so there are people who still advocate for just throw some fish in the tank that you really don't care about, let them cycle the tank, and then when the tank is cycled, you're already making a face, huh?
Yeah, I don't like that.
The inner fish keeper in you, the fish mom in you is like, ooh, that's a little rough. I mean, so, and I agree. There's better ways to do it. Now that we've become more advanced, we've learned more about aquatics in general. To throw the fish in there, it's easy. But obviously there's two major drawbacks with just throwing fish in a tank, letting them produce the ammonia, wind up being in that environment where the ammonia is getting higher than the nitrite a few weeks later. What winds up happening to those fish is they wind up going through a solid probably 6 to 8 weeks where they're in some serious trouble in terms of water quality. So one, obviously it's bad for the fish, but what I think a lot of people overlook is it makes those fish more susceptible to disease, things like ick, things like fin rot, because they're under stress. Their immune system, their immune response has been weakened, and so they're more susceptible to protozoal and bacterial and fungal disease. Those things, once they get in there, it's like, okay, you're dealing with ammonia and or nitrite, and now we're dealing with ick, or now we're dealing with fin rot, or now we're dealing with a fungus or some type of bacterial parasite. Now we've got bigger problems because now you're starting to throw meds in the tank, and the meds might be crashing the little bit of microbes that you had in there in the first place, and you prolong the situation even longer. So I am strongly against using fish to put in a tank to cycle. Would you agree that that's probably your stance as well?
Sure.
Okay.
2 votes for that.
2 votes for that. The second way is far less damaging to fish, and that is you'll have people who put small amounts of ammonia, actually ammonia in the tank, and they will try to cycle the tank that way. The other way to do that is sometimes people will put actual small amounts of fish food in the tank, and that will encourage bacterial growth as well. Now that's okay. Obviously, you're not damaging fish doing that. The problem with that is typically it takes a fairly long time for that to happen. And so for those of you who are a little bit less patient, or you just don't want to deal with it, and especially if you're throwing fish food in there, you start to get a little bit of water cloudiness and stuff like that. So you might be waiting a while, and so maybe you're waiting 4, 5, 6 weeks for that to happen, and so it's like, oh, I really don't want to do that. And so that could be the downside there. Another way, and I think this is actually not a bad way, it's probably a way that you would like.
Okay.
Because I think in some cases you've done it and probably just don't realize you've done it. And that
happens a lot.
Right? And that is using plants, live plants, not fake plants. I threw all those plastic plants in the tank like you told me to, and my fish still died, and I blame you for it. No. I'm talking about real, live, aquatic plants.
Well, like fake plants, when you get them right out of the package, I hear if you open them up and put them in the tank right away, your tank is cycled.
You heard that, huh? No, that's definitely not true. Please ignore that statement. We strike that statement from the record. You've been overruled.
Kidding.
So, yeah, live plants can actually help. And so generally, if I am going to set up a tank and I'm not in any hurry, or I haven't gotten the fish yet that I want to put in that tank, if I know I'm going to be putting in live plants, we put those in and then we wait. Mm-hmm. And we've actually, so that's one of the quarantine tanks that we set up, the 20 long under the stairs. That tank has just had plants in there. And then what I wait for is the algae to start growing. And we had a bunch of green. I just bought a big handful of green algae. And for a lot of people, like, oh my gosh, you got to plant a tank and you've got green hair algae. That sounds horrible. No, because what that told me is I put the plants in. I put a couple squirts of liquid fertilizer in, or if they are rooted plants, I might throw some root tabs in. But once I start to see all that algae grow, I know that there's some food available for them. And usually, I'll typically wait a few weeks. But then I can start adding small numbers of fish. Like if I had that 20 long that I'm talking about and I had plants in there, I might just add, I'm like, okay, well, we were going to put a betta in there and maybe, I don't know, a pleco, a bristlenose pleco, a small one. Okay, that's what's going to go in there. Wait a week or two and make sure that the water parameters are okay. So that's another way to go about it. It's still going to take you a little bit of time. All right, so what do we generally do? So what would you say is the number one and number two things that we do in our fish room to cycle a tank so we can do all these awesome scapes and not have to worry?
You can add Fritz times 7. And, for any scape that I do, I usually add that and then usually use filter media. Yeah,
so that's the two things that we do that allow you to add fish quickly, which means I set up the tank, boom, in the fish go. So one is using filter media from an established tank. Okay, now there's usually a couple questions that are associated with that. Question number one is, how do I know the filter media that I'm going to add to my new tank is going to have sufficient amounts of bacteria carried over from the old tank? And what I usually tell people, if I'm going to do that, if I'm planning on using filter media from an established tank to set up a new tank, generally I want the filter media in the established tank for at least 4 weeks. So that could be throwing some filter sponge and a hang-on back. That could be adding a sponge filter to your tank. That could even be using filter floss. Or maybe it's like the bio rings that you put in a filter bag. I would generally like to have those in the established tank for 4 weeks. And then when I set up my new tank, that used filter media goes in the hang-on back, or the sponge filter goes in the tank. Now, a couple things to consider there. Thing number one is you only have the microbes on and in the media itself at this point. So generally speaking, that's not the only place where the beneficial microbes reside. They reside all over the surfaces of your tank. So your rocks, your driftwood, your fake or real plants, possibly the sides of the glass. So when you're adding used filter media, please understand that you don't want to go like full blast, like, okay, I've got the used filter media. I'm just going to go ahead and fully stock my 10 gallon or my 20 gallon or my 55. You could run into problems there. Now, will the problems be last as long as a completely uncycled tank? No. But you might not have sufficient amounts of microbes, beneficial microbes, nitrifying bacteria to support a fully stocked tank. And so even with that, we generally don't stock it very heavily at first. So as an example, if I had a 20 gallon and I had a fully cycled sponge filter from another tank, and I threw that in this brand new 20 gallon, I'm not fully stocking that tank. Maybe that means, oh, in that 20 gallon, I threw in 12 ember tetras. Or I threw in a honey gourami and half a dozen cory cats. And then I wait. And I make sure that I probably wait a couple weeks and make sure that, okay, now I've got sufficient microbes for them. I can add another half a dozen fish if I want to. Maybe I want to add, I don't know, more ember tetras or some neons or something. So I would usually wait a little while for that. The downside to doing that, and please be aware there is a downside. The downside is, please, you have to make sure that the media coming from the established tank, that tank has had no obvious signs of disease. Because if you take that media from, like, let's say a pet store, and the pet stores are just constantly cycling through their fish, you really need to make sure, okay, that tank, there's been no disease there. We only take media from our tanks, right? So I don't think I would run to a pet store and be like, hey, you got any, can I just grab some of that biomedia out of that tank?
Where those moss balls are?
Yeah, where the moss balls are and all those fish are floating kind of halfway sideways. So that's the risk is you could potentially introduce disease if the tank that you're getting the media from has had any kind of issue in recent times. The other thing that you mentioned, and this is a go-to for us, every single tank that we add, and I actually brought, here's time, and this is all, it was wet because it was in the fridge. We keep this stuff in the fridge.
It takes up a lot of our
I know, space. Right? It's, at some point we're going to have to get a fridge for the fish room.
I keep telling you.
I know you keep telling me, but this is the Fritzheim 7. We talk about this stuff all the time. And I just realized that I've probably been misspelling this in every comment I've ever answered my entire life of telling people to use Fritzheim 7 because it's actually right. Fritz, the full word, and then Zyme. So it's actually technically two Z's there, and I always just kind of combine it into one word with one Z.
Know that.
Yeah, see, who knew? But anyway, we keep this in the fridge because there's microbes in here, and so we just want to kind of store this for as long a period as we can. So this is the Fritzheim 7. This is what we use in every single setup, regardless of whether or not that if we've used filter media, that's hard to say, if we've implemented used filter media or not. Used filter media? Used cycled filter media? Just kind of working it through.
Sure.
Sorry. But anyway, this is the stuff. This I love because it's adding the live nitrifying bacteria. In fact, I did put an Amazon affiliate link down in the description below if this is something you're interested in. We have this in our house all the time. If you're not constantly setting up new tanks, maybe you don't need to worry about it, but we are, so we have a number of these bottles in the refrigerator because we tend to go through a decent amount of it. And I will say, your entire nano nook, and all of these tanks were run on Fritzheim 7.
Yeah, they were basically brought to life.
Your nano nook, I don't think we ever actually used filter media in those tanks when we set them up, especially all the 2.5s, because they were all new sponge filters, remember? Yeah. So again, very lightly stocked. So that's the thing. When I use the Fritzheim 7, when we use it, we're not packing the tanks full of fish. In your case, with these smaller tanks, it might have been, okay, here's a betta and a mystery snail in a smaller, 3-gallon whatever tank. Or here was a few pea puffers, or here's a half a dozen sparkling gouramis in a 20. So that was kind of where we started. Back here, we used all three. We used the trifecta. We had the plants.
Yeah.
We had used filter media, and we had the Fritzheim 7. We put all that in there, and as you can see behind us, I think the tanks are doing fairly well. So Fritzheim 7 is the way that we definitely do all the stuff. But again, no matter what you're doing when you establish a new tank, when you set up a new tank, go slow. Patience. We talk about it all the time. I know We all want to see a tank that's fully stocked and all the fish interacting. But if you have patience early on, it will save you all kinds of issues later, I promise. By the way, if you already have an issue like, oh my gosh, I've got an ammonia spike, I've got a nitrite spike. First of all, we've done videos on that before. In that particular case, one of the best things to do besides what we talk about in the videos, what do we do with an ammonia spike or nitrite spike, is adding not necessarily the Fritzheim 7. I mean, it will help if you have it, but Fritz Turbo Start. It has a higher concentration of the nitrifying bacteria. So that are the options you have for cycling a new tank. Again, our go-tos: used filter media, Fritzheim 7, live plants when we can do that. Do you have anything you want to add? Anything you saw? Any cool stuff? Let me scroll up here.
Stuff.
Oh, okay, lots of cool stuff.
I wish I had my own simultaneous.
Yeah, and by the way, so if you're asking questions while I'm usually going through my little 15-minute spiel here, I will probably not see them. So if it was a question that you want answered, now would be the time to put the @Primetime Aquatics thing in there, and you can ask those questions, and there'll be a much higher likelihood of me seeing them rather than trying to scroll all the way up. Although sometimes I try to, like just now I went way too crazy on the whole scrolling situation. Finn Wiggles, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the number one fan,
Finn.
Jumpin' Man. It's one of the coolest things we see.
Finn
Number one
WIG.
fan. Yep. The Finn number one fan, Jumpin' Man. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Scrolling on down, I saw something else. I saw Captain Savage Aquatics. Welcome to Primetime Partners. Welcome to being a Primetimer, Primate. Glad you're here. It is an awesome community that we have going on here. So thank you for being here.
Yes, we do.
We scroll on down.
Bestest.
Killer Kitty 08, thank you very much for the little Bravo.
Yay!
Is it a little Bravo fox?
We always go through, is it a cat? Is it a fox?
I think
it's a cat.
I think it's a fox.
Especially if Killer Kitty 08's
Oh, that's a really good point. All right, it's a cat. It's a Bravo cat. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Let's answer some questions. Do you want to answer some questions? Do you have any?
Here's one from Lucas. What about using used soil from a healthy tank? I did that without anything else, and the tank seemed to cycle.
Used soil? So, soil or substrate?
It said soil. Hey, Lucas, if it's not soil, can you specify? Like, is it just sand, gravel, or is it actual, like, aqua soil?
Is this Lucas or LRB?
No, this is Lucas.
Okay.
This is not the LRB.
Okay, a couple things. So, used soil, like actual dirt soil stuff, I'm actually kind of surprised if that worked. I believe you it worked. The only reason why I'm surprised is usually soil, if it's actually soil, like in a dirted tank, it's going to be packed under a capping layer.
Amazon substrate.
Okay, so that's not like dirt, right? So the reason why I was struggling with it is because, okay, I'm thinking if you put a dirt layer and then a cap, that's an anaerobic environment, which means it lacks oxygen, and the microbes that are responsible for the nitrification process are all aerobic. They need oxygen. So let's call it substrate. All right, so it's an aqua soil. It could be you could have the same result with gravel, with not as much with sand. But yes, if you were using a fair amount and also lightly stocking, it would serve the same purpose as using filter media as long as you're getting the top layers. I know that, and I actually think you have to be careful with the advice of just just throw a little bit of gravel. So in the old days, before the internet and before we had all the videos and advice and stuff, pet store people would say, like we knew about the cycle, the nitrogen cycle, but we were still kind of in the early days, and they would tell you just take a handful of gravel and just chuck it in your tank. Well, the problem with that is if you took a little handful of gravel from an established tank and chucked it in, like, let's say a 75-gallon, and then you were like, oh, that makes it okay, let me go ahead and just start adding a bunch of fish, that didn't work. But if you were still using that same concept of adding fish very slowly, I could see adding some substrate. But at that point, what I might do is if it's a small amount, or it's, like let's say a handful, I might just throw that in a filter bag and throw that in the back of the actual aquarium, the hang-on back filter or canister filter, just so that those microbes are more exposed to the actual stuff, ammonia nitrate, the food, eat the food. Ricky, thank you so much for the super chat. My gosh, thank you. Ricky. Wanted to take the time to wish you a very happy and belated birthday to Probably my favorite YouTuber of all time. Hope this enough for a pizza. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That was awesome. Jacob, thank you for the super chat. Hi, thank you for helping me out. I just upgraded from a 29 to a 75 gallon with single Oscar, and you have taught me so much. I appreciate you guys so much. I now am running a 75 with a Fluval 407 canister. That's cool. That sounds like a really cool setup. So you got the basically what we'd call the wet pet, the fish that acts like a dog, right? The Oscar just hanging out there. That's cool, man. So I'm glad you got that set up. Thank you. Yay. Appreciate it. That's cool. Now the question is, you said you upgraded, but Jacob, did you really get rid of the 29? Because most of us don't do that. You upgrade, you're like, all right, I got this 29, I need the 75, and then we really have a hard time. We're almost kind of like what's this Frodo's uncle's name with the ring? Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? It's like my favorite movie of all time, and I can't remember his name. It's late.
Sleep is a good thing. Keep that in mind. Bilbo?
Bilbo. Jeez, that's embarrassing. That's just straight up embarrassing. That's my favorite series of all time. I know everybody's name, and I can quote the movie front, ways, and back. But anyway, remember, like Bilbo with the ring? It's mine. Why shouldn't I have it? That's kind of less with like fish tanks, right? It's like, okay, I replace the tank, and it's like, this 29 gallon, it's my precious. And you like just put it in the basement or off into the garage somewhere. Like, but you never know.
Pretty soon comes back in the house.
And then you can just say, if someone has a problem with it, be like, you know what? This could be a quarantine tank. And then you set it up, and then you have to get another tank because that's got to be the quarantine tank.
See, now with my nano tanks, if I break one down, like there's a 3 gallon where I'm like, I don't think I'm using that right now. I don't even put it in the garage anymore. I put it literally right over there in the hall because I'm going to need it downstairs. I might need it right here.
In our upstairs area, I see so if you all remember, was that the 2.3 gallon bookshelf?
I think so,
And then I see another one that we've never set up, but it's not even there. It's now from the fish room leading upstairs into our kitchen. I randomly will see tanks. Yeah. So I always have to make sure to turn the lights on when you're going down the stairs because you might trip over a tank or they'll be by the sink. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one's, I don't know about her sometimes.
I just have to have it all around me wherever I'm at. I'm thinking about scapes and stuff. It's just, I don't know.
I'd
say sorry, but I'm not sorry.
The other day, I walk in to her office where she's supposed to be working, and I see her hunched over the desk, and she looks like a madman. I'm like, what are you doing? She's got driftwood in one hand. She's got a pile of rocks. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be actually like accomplishing like work-related stuff right now? She's like, this is work too. I'm like, okay.
I had an idea, and I just had to see it. Sometimes you have it in your head. You just have to see it out, and then you just know.
Yeah, I had those ideas too, but they're usually all the same. It's like, okay, if I were to set up a tank, pile of rocks right in the center. That's all I can do. I'm pretty bad.
Hey, Alex is here from Secret Life.
What's up?
Alex, otherwise known as Alex Secret Life, because that's what I call you. Hey, I never knew that you did the artwork for LRB, and I'm such a dummy that I never looked like, look for signature, look for his name, the artist's name, and it's right there.
That's cool. That's some really intense art, man.
That's amazing. It's like
really cool.
So much stuff to find. It's like a little treasure hunt. Yep. It's like, where's Waldo? Where's Lucas? And all the little fun things like plants popping out of his pocket and stuff. It's just so cool.
It's got to take a lot of time.
Rock on.
That's cool.
Big fan here.
Lucas, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. I added about 3 inches of Amazona substrate from another shrimp tank and am only keeping snails, plants, and shrimp so far. That's cool. Yeah, I could totally see that working.
Sure, it's a party.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier with the shrimp because their bio load is so small too. So that can certainly fall in the realm of stocking lightly, which reminds me.
Sorry. I just read a comment. You'll laugh too. You can finish the thought.
No, because I'm saying remind me that I got to put the snail food in, the special little calcium chips later. I forgot to do that this morning. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Don't forget to drop them in the tank. Okay. All right, so Fishroom Fever says, I'm pretty sure I saw her escaping in the car driving away from Aquashella. Could have been.
You know?
I would doubt it.
Yeah, it's not beyond the realm of possibility when you're walking out of a place with... Although you didn't have a tank, so it probably would have been like a lapscape. Like, imagine this is a 5 gallon.
Right, I could hold it, like, well, it's about this size.
Show a pile of rocks on the table. It's almost like, it's like kind of a real life version of the Blair Witch Project, where you walk out of the room, there's a pile of rocks or sticks or whatever it is, just right outside the room. It's like, Okay, I really hope that was you messing around with a scape and not some ominous sign to come.
It was me.
Yeah. And it's very common to walk outside the door and see a pile of sticks or rocks or plants or flowers.
I'm usually pretty good about not leaving piles of sand, though. I did that
That's
once.
actually untrue because let me tell you.
That was like so last year.
No, that was 5 minutes ago. Actually, it was 30 minutes ago because right back there where I put your little plant tree thing, because the tanks that were up there, they reflect off the light. Yeah, there was a pile of sand.
Well, that fell out of a piece of like rock.
So you knew it was there.
Yeah, there was a pile over there too. I took care of that.
All right.
I don't know. Sometimes it just looks pretty.
Yeah, it looked really pretty when I was trying to brush it off onto my hands so I could clean it off so it didn't wind up on the floor. I was thinking, man, this is the prettiest thing I've ever seen. All right, let's answer some more questions here. Hold on. Wait, I saw some good ones and then I lost them because my thing always jumps around. Ron asks, I just got a new sponge filter and I want to replace my internal filter with it in my shrimp tank. Will it cause a recycling? Here's what I would do. So this goes along with what I was talking about. You're almost treating the filter as, I mean, it's uncycled, right? So your sponge filter that you want to use, you've got an internal canister filter with your shrimp tank. So that's probably going to be a better deal because the sponge filter is not going to suck up the shrimp. It's going to give more surface area for the shrimp to kind of graze on. What I would do is I would run them both simultaneously for the next 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, I think you'll be able to pull out that internal canister filter and just leave the sponge filter in there. And then I think you will avoid most of the issues you're worried about. So try that. That's usually what we will do when I've got, we've had that before where it's like, okay, I've got, converting a hang-on back to sponge filters or vice versa. Leave them both in there for a while, for about 4 weeks. All right, let's see here. I'm scrolling around. Alice B. Will cherry shrimp be okay with EcoComplete or will it drop the pH too much? Tap pH is 7.6. It depends. So it depends on what your KH values are. So if your KH is relatively, it's on the, it doesn't necessarily be on the higher side, but let's just say your KH is 5, 6, 7 degrees or more. It's probably not going to do as much to your pH. If you've got virtually no KH, it could drop your pH significantly. So just one of the things that I always recommend is I try not to guess when living things are involved. And so that would be the perfect time where I might set up a plastic tote or a bin and just put the EcoComplete in there if that's what you were using and add in my water, put an air stone in there and just see what happens after a couple weeks if you really want to be certain that it's going to be okay.
Jess is here too. Hi, Jess.
What's up,
Manes,
Jess?
Tails, furs, fins.
And all those other things.
And all those things.
I read her YouTube name thing here, and it never dawned on me. I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And then I found out she was keeping horses.
Yeah, well.
How cool is that?
I know
it makes sense.
I'm so
like,
jealous.
duh.
I want to visit you.
I want to keep horses.
I want a horse so bad. I always did want
I
a
don't
horse.
even, you know what? I don't want a horse. That's not true. What I want is a mule. Mules are the big, which ones are bigger, the mules or the donkeys? I should know that, but I don't.
Who cares? Get a nice
Maybe
Clydesdale. That's big.
I don't know. We were someplace in Michigan and they had like horses and then it was either a mule or a donkey. And the thing was much larger than a horse. I'm like, I want to ride that. They're
That's
like,
a small horse.
well, that's a tough one to ride. And I'm like, I don't care. I want to ride the mule. I think it was a mule. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dave from Iowa says, Marion has, I think that's what it says. Marlon, my eyes are really shot today. Has asked about the rosette sword. Do you know what a rosette? Have we done rosette sword?
Not really. I don't really do anything with swords. The only I do is a micro sword, and that's not really a sword. So I don't really speak. But the root balls or the bulbs are so large, and they're for large tanks, and I don't.
So we do have a couple swords in the fish room. If the rosette sword is like as long as it's fully submersible, I don't do anything super special with it except know that at least the swords that we've gotten have gotten really, really big. Like I show in one of the videos, I had a sword in a 29 and it filled up 2/3 of the tank. I mean, it was really a large plant. And it had one of the more extensive root systems of any plant. In fact, that plant, you want a little history on that plant? Because it's actually quite interesting.
How old is it?
That plant is about 6 years old. It started out in a 20 gallon, and in some of our very early videos you can see it's just a little tiny guy. And it got a really extensive root system. I'm like, okay, it was a 20 long. I'm like, the 20 long is not nearly big enough for this plant. It started getting a little large, so I put it in a 29. It was there for a couple years. It grew crazy. The root system, when I pulled it out of there, it covered pretty much the entire surface, like the bottom part of the 29 gallon. You put it in the 75 gallon where it's currently residing, and even there it's taking up most. But so a couple things. One, root tabs are going to be really great for it because it is a big time root. It's got extensive roots. Be careful with your algae eating type fish because of all the plants I think we deal with. The sword plants have some of the thinner leaves, and so things like bristlenose plecos could potentially actually eat them, eat the leaves. I think if mystery snails are going to do damage to a plant, sword plants would probably be the one where there's a possibility, although I'm fairly certain we had mystery snails in with the sword and it was fine. But there's nothing really special about it that I thought in terms of care. If it's just a kind of like a fully submersible sword.
Alex, pipe in if there's anything they need to know.
And somebody did say, Aaron said mules. Yeah, a lot of Shannon too. Mules. All right, that's what I want. I want a mule, and that mule is gonna be the coolest thing ever. Someday when we get a bunch of land, I'm getting a mule. Yep. Just be ready for it. And it's going to be the coolest thing.
As long as I get a horse.
All right. My mule is going to... And then we can race. And then you'll probably beat me in the race. Actually, she rode horses, so it'd be really unfair because I would lose. But then we're going to have a pulling competition. So to even things out. All right, you beat me in the race. All right.
I'll get a Percheron. Not a problem.
Whatever. I'll get a special mule.
Oh my gosh.
All right, Cody says sump or canister filter for a 110 gallon tank. Why? The 110s are the tall. Are you talking about a tall one? Usually the 110s around us are 4-foot tanks and they're extremely tall, like 30. Gosh, they're over 30 inches, right? 32, 33 inches, something like that. If I were going to run, all right, so first of all, I wouldn't run either because I know me, and me is. I don't like cleaning canister filters. In fact, I fully and wholly and completely despise cleaning canister filters. So I don't have any canister filters up and running right now, and that makes me very happy in my heart. Sumps are great. I think if I were going to choose between the two, I might go the sump route. Now, obviously, then you're dealing with a drilled tank, but whatever, that's fine. The reason I would do the sump is it's so much easier to clean. So there's a lot of advantages to a sump in my opinion. One, it is easier to clean. You put the filter sock on there, you put some filter floss, the water hits the filter sock. I know people in our clubs who just take those filter socks off, rinse them out, they throw them in the washing machine because that's not really where your biological filtration is anyway. They put it back on. They might do that once a week. The rest of the sump remains pretty much maintenance free. The other cool thing they do is they'll put lights under their tank and they'll grow plants. And so the plants are helping with the nitrate reduction. You can't do that with a canister, right? I know a lot of people talk about, well, you can just get like the special media, the biohome media. And yeah, you can do that. And like I said before, you've got the types of media that create the anaerobic environments where, they're going to do some denitrification, so the other half of the nitrogen cycle. Okay, fine. Let's just say that that's happening for at least half the people who use that media. At that point, why not just run a sump? Why not run a sump, put a bunch of pothos down there or a bunch of aquatic plants, put a light down there, and not only do you have the ease of cleaning of the sump, but then you've also got the nitrate reduction happening as well. So that would be my vote. But I'm also not really into the whole drilled tank scene, so I would probably just get lazy, run 2 hang-on back filters, and then probably a power head towards the bottom as long as I don't have any fish that are going to be worried, or stressed about it. So it's blowing the stuff back up to the very short intakes on that extremely tall tank. That's option 3. It's probably the worst of the 3 options, though.
Okay.
What you got?
Bradley has a question. If I add fish or increase feedings, is it normal for ammonia spike?
If you add fish or increase feedings, is it normal? I wouldn't say it's normal. What I would say is it's possible. Again, when we are dealing with the aquatic environment, what we're trying to do is slowly make changes. When we do that and we're on our slow change game and we're not adding too much at one time, generally speaking, fish don't contribute to ammonia or nitrite spikes. And what I mean by that, again, like as an example, because sometimes examples are easiest to, rather than just talking in the abstract. Let's say we got a 29 gallon. 29 gallons, been up and running for 6 months, no problems. In that 29 gallon, I've got a dozen dwarf rainbows, a half a dozen Cory cats, a dwarf gourami, and I'm like, gosh, you know what? I really would like to add, and I know I'm getting overstocked here, but just bear with me. I want to add a half a dozen hatchet fish. That's probably not going to be a problem because that tank has been established for 6 months. You've got a decent amount of bioload, especially if it's planted. You're probably not going to have an issue. Now, let's say that I have that same 29 gallon. I've got the dwarf gourami in there and a half a dozen Cory cats. That was my starting thing, and I did all the stuff we talked about earlier. I added the Fritzheim 7. I had the used filter media that I took from another tank. That was all working great. And then I want to go out and add a dozen rainbow fish and a half a dozen hatchet fish, and I don't know. I found one other fish that I impulse buyed, and I throw all those in there. Could that potentially be more of an issue? Maybe, right? So if we're adding fish slowly and we're feeding proper amounts, usually it's not something you should be seeing. All right, hold on. I saw a couple things come through. Rocky and Miles, thank you very much for the little sticker. Appreciate it. And Anthony, thank you very much for the super chat. Do you have any advice for gold rams in hard water? So, if you have them, well, so for us, my advice is if Joanna wanted them, and she does, I say no. And that's just because I'm me.
It's on the no list.
Yeah, I'm like, no.
Always has been.
And then if she's like, but, I say, no. And then I say, no.
Yeah,
no.
I've got lots of variations of
no. I've got all kinds of variations. Just in case you didn't have one, let me bounce a no off you. I generally don't keep any. When it comes to rams, the Bolivian rams do fine in our water. We've got some very old Bolivian rams in our tanks. But all the German blues, so the German blues, the electrics, the yellows, the golds, they don't do very well in our water because our water is harder with a higher pH. So that's my advice is if you haven't bought them yet, maybe reconsider. If you have and the water is still hard and you still got a higher pH, you could potentially have problems. Kind of, I guess it would depend on where they were bred and are they used to that kind of water. But yeah, I stay away from them. They've caused me too many issues and heartbreak over the years. Fish fan, 20 gallon long. Thank you for the super chat. You both inspire me greatly. Thank you. In a 20 gallon long, will floating plants be good to hide guppy platy fry? If so, what would you recommend? What say you? So first of all, yes, that is what we've done, and we've had massive reproduction of guppies, and then even the Variatus platies we had for a while before the thing just kind of all, I don't know what happened to them, but we had a lot of breeding, and you said hornwort. That's a great example of in guppy grass, right? I mean, there's a reason why it gets its name, and we had the guppy party tank at one point that started with like 8 guppies, and at one point we had a couple hundred in a 20 gallon that we were just constantly bringing to swaps and auctions and stuff. And that was, so there's two things really. One is the top cover, just so that they feel a little bit more secure. But the other two things that we do that I think help a lot with our live bear survival, whether we're talking about mollies, guppies, platies, whatever, is we make sure that the parents are well fed. When the parents are well fed, they're not, at least in our experience, they're not as likely to go after the fry. Because what's the point, right? If their bellies are full, it's like, well, I'm not really hungry. There's no reason to go eat that fish and have to expend energy. The other thing we like to do is, in any tank where we know there's breeding, is feed live baby brine. And the reason for that is, one, it does a really good job of feeding not only the fry, so they grow a little, they grow a little bit larger, a little bit faster, but the adults love it too. And so I also think because they're getting a full gamut of nutrition, they are also less likely to eat the fry. But definitely hornwort, guppy grass. What's the other one that you've been floating lately?
Dwarfambulia. It's very similar to hornwort, but slightly prettier.
Yeah, where's that? Is that in the tank behind my head? So if I go
that one.
This one over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is...
It's also in the farm tank. Fun fact, I just had to clear out the farm tank. A lot of production going on in there. The Dwarfambulia Did you see the flip tank recently?
I went down there this morning to feed fish, and all the tanks looked very good. That's the best I've looked in a long time.
I added a bunch of real plants.
Yeah.
I didn't want to detract from your fake plants, but yeah, so that grows
Wait,
like
what
a
flip
weed.
tank?
One in the corner, the bottom corner. You know where you replaced the Anubias that came out in the wrong spot, and I got really mad? The bottom corner, under the geos. Remember where the geos used to be?
Oh, the 55 gallon.
Yeah.
You gotta talk gallons. Yes. No, I didn't see that. I'm gonna have to go take a closer look. I was so impressed with all your tanks on the nano side.
I totally stocked it with fresh, grown, organic dwarf abulia.
Organic. I like the inorganic abulia.
It sounds fancier.
It's basically made of plastics. Oink, Master Supreme Forever, thank you for the super chat. Do you think I'll be okay using a secondhand 3-way older school saltwater light, halides not LED, with your DIY for making tank lid or go glass going on 125 gallon? I don't know how hot though. I'm assuming the issue is, are you worried about the heat? So I don't know how hot those lights get. It's been so long since I've used those. I mean, I definitely wouldn't rest them on the thing. Probably not. But I think it would be more of an issue of temperature. Certainly in terms of light, if you're worried about the light penetrating the plastic and growing plants, you're going to be fine there. Because the DIY stuff is greenhouse siding. And so the whole point is that stuff is supposed to allow light through so that the plants can grow. I just don't know about the heat situation. So if you're getting to a point where you turn those lights on, it might be worth turning lights on, just like how much heat is being generated. If you're worried about maybe melting or the bowing of the actual lid, then maybe it's worth just doing the LED or just go glass. Yeah, just go glass with the lids. Lucas, thank you for the super chat. I'm new to the hobby. Looking at getting the Waterbox 39 gallon with sump tank. What is your opinion of this brand? Thank you. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you very much for being here. I have not used the Waterbox aquarium, so I don't know the intricacies. Maybe somebody here, if you've gotten that brand before and you can help Lucas out, share your experience. That would be really cool. I don't know. I like the idea of having a tank that, if you're going to use a sump, a tank where maybe the sump came with it. Hopefully that's the case. Because I do like a lot. These tanks back here are growing on me. The tanks that have the all-in-one internal filters that pump. First of all, there's so much filtration capacity for the size tank that we have.
I really wish I could replace the 4 that we have, the 4 8-gallons, with these 4 8-gallons.
The ones downstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be...
I hate sponge filters in those things.
I know. They mess up your deal.
They do mess up my deal bad.
But... So I don't know. I'm sorry I can't help you more with that. I do like the idea of having a sump and a tank system because it's probably going to fit together a little bit better. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody here has used it before. All right, what else we got here?
Oh, happy Wednesday, Lonnie.
Happy Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole asked a good question. Fish euthanasia, how would you do it? I have to put my fish down, and I heard so many different ways. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that's happening. It stinks because we get attached to our fish, and that's never a good thing. So the only method that is approved is using clove oil. So that is I know there's a lot of things out there where you can freeze them or you can add certain chemicals, but the only one that is officially approved for the euthanization of fish is using clove oil. And there's a ton of videos out there on how to use it, but that is the way that you'd want to go because the clove oil is gonna serve almost like an anesthetic in addition to stopping respiration. So that would be the way to go with that. But I'm sorry that happened. That's never a good thing to have to deal with. Killer Kitty 08. Hold on. Thank you for the super chat again. Can you explain the proper way to level a tank and how important is it? Starting a 150 gallon and it will be the first one I've considered leveling. I think it's important. If it's off by a tiny little amount, okay, then it's more of an aesthetics thing. I do level our tanks. All of our tanks in the basement are level. I mean, if you look at them, if there's a water line that's slightly below the rim, you'll see that it is level. I level side to side and front to back. So a lot of times people will do one way or the other, and they forget to do, oh my gosh, I got to level this thing front to back, in terms of the wall. So the ways that I typically do it in the fish room is by using shims. But the thing you have to be careful of is, let's say you have a wood stand and the entire perimeter of the stand is supposed to touch the floor. Let's say you level this thing, because this is usually a bigger problem in a basement. Most of the time, if we're dealing with floors that are not basement floors, they're not going to be sloped. Basement floors have to be sloped because if there is water in the basement, it needs to run towards the sump system that's part of the house. So if I'm dealing with a stand where the entire base is going to be touching the floor, and let's say I have to shim one corner of it, well, I don't want that gap between the corner and where the part of the stand actually starts touching the floor again. There will be a gap there, and so I would generally shim all that open area as well, just to make sure that the entire stand is resting on something solid. There's a couple ways you can do that. I mean, wood shims are very common. The problem with the wood shims is over time, if they get wet, as inevitably things do when you're dealing with fish, oh my gosh, my canister filter leaked and now my shims are all wet, or just through time, sometimes they can get a little nasty, right? And not as capable of holding up that weight. So they also have plastic shims, and so you could consider that as well. I guess the advantage of using the wood is what we can do is I can just shove them in there, and then I can just crack off the part that's sticking out, right? So, or I just, in some cases, you're getting a little behind the scenes of the fish room, the up close vision. If I have a stand, since I built all my stands, they just rest on 4 legs typically, maybe 2 legs in the center if it's a longer stand. I will shim those areas, make sure it's shimmed all the way around that area so no part of the stand is elevated from the floor, right? So the entire, whatever's supposed to be touching the floor is touching something solid. And if it's just sticking out a little bit, I will often paint those shims the same color as a stand. You don't even really know the shims are there. But yeah, I try to shim the stand as best I can. Like I said, basements, it's very hard not to have to do that. If it's on a first floor, usually those floors are a lot more level. Like Master Supreme Forever, thank you for the super chat. Know any fish can live in water with hardness of 410? Oh my golly darn. That's like a 20-something degrees hardness. I'm sure like the soda lakes or something like that, if there's organisms in there, but nothing off the top of my head. Is that really your water hardness? Is 410? Can't be. Say it ain't so. I don't know. Not off the top of my head. I haven't really researched it because I've never had water even remotely close to that. I'm like, man, my water's hard and it's 200 parts per million. It's like half that. So, you know what? I don't have it in front of me. And probably the easiest way to answer that question is if you go on the API, the master test kit will actually show you the water hardness, like, okay, this is hard water, this is moderately hard water, very hard water, and then it will show you the fish in those areas. I mean, the hardest, there are soda lake fish. In fact, what was that fish that when I was at the fish room tour, I put it in my Instagram. If you go to my Instagram, I was at Jason's fish room, and there was a soda lake fish in his fish room that required extremely warm temperatures, but I don't remember the water hardness information. So, and I don't know, maybe if some of you have kept fish at that water hardness, feel free to share, but I've never had water that hard, so I don't know, like what's going to happen with your typical mollies and even your cichlids, like Lake Tanganyika. Hold on, I want to just see something. So answer some questions. I want to look something up.
Sure. Oh. Chad Owen Design says newly added platies are attacking my mystery snails. What gives? Is this a thing with platies? Do platies attack them?
They sometimes pick at them, but I wouldn't say that they try to eat them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's not something I would say that's like, oh my gosh, yeah, they just love to gobble them up. Hold on, you keep answering questions.
Wendy has to split. Good night, Wendy.
Good night, Wendy.
Hi.
Yeah, so I was just looking. What I wanted to see was the like Lake Tanganyika, Lake Victoria, Lake Malawi, water hardness. So total hardness is calcium carbonate is about 224. And then total magnesium as calcium carbonate is 180. So yeah, even those total calcium as calcium carbonate. Yeah, so that's even like half. Oh well, I don't know. It's possible some of your African cichlids might be. It's still pretty high though. Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried to keep them there. I would say that's why I was looking at the Lake Tanganyikans, just because I wanted to refresh my memory just how their water hardness is, but it's not quite that high. All right.
Yeah, 2.
Okay.
Okay. First one, this is a fun question. All right, so Emily says, hello, awesome meeting you all at Aquashella, Chicago. Great
Nice
meeting
to meet you.
Okay, I'm in the process of finishing up a fish room. How exciting.
Cool.
Having trouble picking out a paint color for the walls. Any recommendations?
Well, my recommendations and yours are probably going to be different.
Yep.
So, okay. Wouldn't you say in the end, do what you want to do? Do the color that you prefer? Mm-hmm. Because, and the reason I say that is we cover the backs of our tanks anyway. I like to paint mine. You like to do other things. I also really like the 3D background. So when it comes to the colors, then you can pretty much do what you want. I mean, even if you look at our fish room, half of it's got like a lighter wood, right? So the one half of our fish room has that lighter wood color, which I think looks good.
Yep.
The other half has got the brick background. I also like that. I've seen fish rooms where, in fact, your Nano Nook is black, right? Yeah. That wall back there is completely black, as is the wall behind the 125s in that same area by you. So I've seen fish rooms where it's all blacked out. Now, that can look cool because then when you are illuminating the tanks, the light that you see is coming from the tanks, and that black color is going to suck away the light that's extraneous, right? So really most of the light is just in the tank, so that can look cool.
But there's there's people who do white, right? Very bright,
sure.
Bright, clean looking. So, and then that's also going to do probably a lot of favors for like spiders. If you want to keep down the little, if it's in the basement
do you
or
want
something.
To see the spiders?
No, they won't. If you don't paint it dark, then they won't actually stay there. Like they won't be hiding in the ceiling and stuff. So light colors will dissuade critters moving in.
Now that you got me thinking about the subject, the downside to a lighter color is, it turns out that my hang-on back filter likes to, hit the water, and the water likes to splash, and week after week and month after month and year after year, you start to see a little bit of that, or your fish splash on the wall, or something happens. That's going to be a lot more visible, right?
But then you see it and you clean it instead of not being able to see it and you don't clean it.
Well, you can still clean it. It's just not going to be quite as visible, I suppose. It really is. So we've done... One of the things that I would encourage you to do is obviously look at pictures of fish rooms. We've done a million fish room videos at this point. We've gone into fish rooms where, like Mike's fish room, he painted the whole thing blue. His stands were blue. The walls were blue. I actually thought that looked pretty cool. Our fish room, like I said, you know what ours looks like. I've been in fish rooms where they're completely blacked out. I've been in fish rooms where they have more of a natural, like wood background feel. So it's just pick what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at pictures. Go on Pinterest.
That's still a thing? I don't hear anybody talking about it anymore.
I do.
You talk about it?
I don't care if anybody else uses it. It's very helpful for me. I like it. It's great. Okay, Sasika wants to know, my Bolivian ram is laying in the tank bottom. Difficult to swim. Please tell treatment. Other fish, GBR, white cloud minnows, paradise, Grammy?
Yeah.
Guppy. Tank is well planted, and it's a 10-gallon.
So wait, a 10-gallon tank, we've got the Bolivian, the German, the paradise, which you're assuming is a paradise fish, and what else is in there?
White clouds.
White clouds.
Guppy.
And
plants.
Okay. So that's a really tough question to answer because there could be a million things going on. It could be anything from Depends on how old the fish is. Is it a fish that's been there for a very long time, in which case it's just getting to the end of its life? Is it a fish that's relatively new, in which case it could be dealing with a parasite that it had when it was at the pet store or wherever it came from? Could it be dealing with bloat? There's a lot of things that it could be, and unfortunately it's really hard to know what it is unless you've got a little bit of history and you can kind of observe it. So, and whatever it is, that's going to make a big determination. Okay, if it's an internal parasite, then you're doing something like the Paracleanse or the Expel P. Could you be using medicated metronidazole flakes, levamisole, if it's something that is an internal parasite? But if it's not, and you've just got a fish that's getting older, then those things would probably not be as effective. So it's really hard to say when it comes to, okay, this is what it is, this is exactly what you do. Unfortunately, I don't have a really great answer for that.
All right, so this is a follow-up from Oink Master Supreme. Forever. The water at the house I mentioned in the super chat is terrible. Hardness, iron, pH, ammonia nitrate, nitrite, sulfur, salt, etc. It's true. Let's see. It reeks of sulfur, salt. It's brown out of the tap. Needs serious treatment. Thank you for advisement. This is for a person who wasn't taking this seriously. Oh.
Okay, yeah. In that case, if that were my water, it's probably well water. It's got to be well water at that point. That's why it's so incredibly hard. That's why you've got all those problems. I'd have to go RO. If we moved out of this house and we found the perfect house somewhere, and that was my water, I would have. First of all, because of what we do, I wouldn't be able to buy a house like that because of the water situation. But if we found out after the fact, or let's just say we just are keeping 1 or 2 tanks, I would put an RO system in. And then I would remineralize it to whatever I want, whatever I need based on the fish that I'm keeping. It would be a major, it would be time consuming, and it would probably limit me in terms of the size of the tanks that I would keep and the types of fish I would keep. But there's no way I would put that stuff in my tank, because you're just going to be chasing problems, especially if you're talking about you've got ammonia and nitrite. So I'm assuming then that's probably somewhere around a farm or something like that, where that would be a disaster.
It'd be yucky.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sid, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm new to the hobby. I assumed my 55-gallon tank was fully cycled, though 2 weeks after adding more fish, I kept getting nitrite spikes. Help. Okay, so no ammonia spikes, I'm assuming, so that's good. The nitrite spikes mean that there's different types of microbes that complete ammonia to nitrite and then nitrite to nitrate. I've done videos on how to reduce nitrite. There's a few things that you're going to want to do. Thing number one is obviously just water changes, right? Dilute the amount of nitrite that is being produced. You could do live plants, right? Live plants will help because they will start competing for the ammonia with the microbes. They will also be lowering nitrate, and the competition with the ammonia and stuff will eventually also lower the nitrite. You can reduce the amount of feeding that you're doing. So reducing the feeding will reduce the amount of waste the fish are producing, which will reduce the amount of ammonia, which will then reduce the amount of nitrite. So it kind of will cycle through that system. You've got this stuff, again, the Fritzzyme 7, because you're already dealing with a spike, maybe the Fritz Turbo Start, that would be a very efficient way to go as well. So the other thing, did it say anything about live plants? So if there's no live plants and the fish are not salt sensitive, you can add a little bit of salt, because that's going to help protect their gills and help with ion exchange a little bit. I wouldn't add a lot of salt. It's aquarium salt, by the way. Maybe you're dealing with like 1 tablespoon per 10 gallons. So all of those things can help until you get the nitrite back under control, which probably isn't. If you said the tank was cycled, then it's you added some fish. Maybe you just did, okay, I added a little bit too many. Hopefully it's a temporary thing. So.
Okay. Somebody suggested I should go on a shirt with a bubble that said sup.
Sup. Should.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, by the way, to Shannon and Ryan.
Hello.
The fabulous duo.
What's up?
All right. Brian has a question. I have a 40 set up and cycled. I'm curious if a firemouth, an electric blue acara, a geo, tapajos, a convict.
Hold on, I lost it from the beginning. I wasn't focused.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, and I'm gonna actually start this with the last sentence first, just so you know. Okay.
Okay.
What combo of those is best? Okay.
All right.
I have a 40 set up and cycled.
40 breeder.
It's just this 40.
Okay.
I'm curious if a firemouth, an electric blue acara, a geotapajos, a convict, a blood parrot, and a rainbow cichlid could go together.
So all of those in the 40?
That's the first question. And then maybe just what combo of those is best?
Okay, so I wouldn't put the blood parrot in there. They get way too big. Those blood parrots will get like that big, and they get very thick-bodied, and they are very active fish. That thing will be a nutcase in that tank, and he will stress out every single fish in there, and they will absolutely start fighting because they're like so what happens is they're oblivious to like personal, like the close talker, like, hey, how you doing? How are you? My name's a blood parrot. How you doing? How are you? Does this make you feel weird? So that's kind of what they do until the other fish get really angry, and then there is a fight, and the blood parrot is unable to protect himself against all the fish that you mentioned in that thing. So I would jettison the blood parrot idea just because I think they're going to get too big for the tank. Same thing with the convict. I don't know how many people have seen a full-sized convict. I know they get a lot of hate from experienced fish and cichlid keepers because they're like, oh, they breed like crazy, and they do. I mean, the last thing you want to do is keep a pair of convicts because you will have fry, and the problem is you can't get rid of the fry. So if you're going to have the fry, and then you're like, well, I've got a fish that only eats live foods, fine. But if you're just like, oh, my convicts bred, I'm going to bring them to the pet store. The pet store's going to be like, I don't want these things. Well, won't you just take them? I don't want them because they're hard to get rid of. But all that being said, for those of you who have ever seen a full-grown male convict that has not been chewed up by other fish in the tank, they are majestic-looking fish. They get the beautiful, beautiful gray and black stripes. They get this really pinkish hue to their underbelly. The trailers, the iridescent trailers on their fins when they're not chewed off by another fish are amazing, but they also get big, and they are very assertive. For me personally, I would jettison the convict. So no blood parrot, no convict. So now we're left with the electric blue acara, the firemouth, and the geophagus, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
At least those three.
Mm-hmm.
In a 40 breeder, it depends on what else you want to do with the tank. Is it possible that you could do the electric blue acara and possibly like a firemouth or the geophagus in a 40 breeder? Probably, maybe. If it were me, I generally try to pick one of the cichlids, and that's probably the way I would roll. So if it were me on the 40 breeder, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a geophagus, make that the centerpiece, and I'm going to add a bunch of fish that are going to give it more of a community feel. Or I'm going to take the electric blue acara and do the same thing. The firemouth gets a little tricky because they're a little bit more aggressive. The other thing to think about with the firemouth and the convict and...
What about the rainbow?
Oh, rainbows are good. Yeah, actually, the rainbow fish is that's a relatively laid-back fish. If you don't like fish digging, then don't do the firemouth. And then what was the other one? No, I think the firemouth was the ones that are left are probably the only ones that are going to dig. Firemouth out of the ones that are left are probably going to be the most aggressive. So you got the geophagus, the rainbow fish, and the electric blue acara. The rainbow fish with an electric blue acara or a geophagus would probably work. And then I would just work on community type stuff to fill around them and make that the centerpiece. Really what I would do is, if it were my tank, I would throw one geophagus tapajos male in there and then do some really cool schooling fish, maybe some cories and go that way with it. Because what you are going to wind up missing once you start combining those fish, they're inevitably going to want their own territory, which means every once in a while they're going to get into scrapples. Scrapples? Yeah, scrapples. It's a word. Scrapples.
Is that worse than a kerfuffle?
It's worse than a scuffle because
it's one of the best
if they
words
do,
ever,
the
kerfuffle.
Point is they start chewing each other's fin trailers, like the dorsal fin and tail fins, and it's like you got this amazing fish that never gets to show its full beauty because of that. Yeah, it's very sad. Mm-hmm. What you got? What's up?
Oh, Cindy just got out of surgery for carpal tunnel. I hope you're doing better.
I hope so too.
I hope it fixes you right up because that could be very painful.
Yeah, that's never a fun thing.
No.
Glad you're here. Let's see. What's up?
Can you see...
Well, I saw what Dave said. Dave said, let's hit 200 likes for the great stream.
Dave.
Wow, that's 200. That's pretty far, man. You're ambitious.
Wow.
Do it. Just punch the like button right in the thumb. I don't want to show the finger, but one of my fingers, I smashed a 45-pound weight on it against, not like dropped it on there, but now I've got a thingy on my finger. So in honor of that, smash the like button's finger, because I know how it feels. My fingertip is still numb, by the way. Yeah. Okay, we're scrolling. We're moving around. Austin's Aquariums. Do you have any experience with keeping or breeding? Oh, and I can't. Man, my eyes are so killifish. No, I don't. We have never bred killifish. No. I just don't have the patience. So there's some guys in the club, the Greenwater Aquarius Society. They breed them and they exchange them, and they're buying eggs off of Aquabid. Yeah, they get all excited and they see killifish and they're like, oh, I gotta get that. But I haven't done it. It's just one thing I haven't gotten into yet. Let's see. And moving along, Francisco, would adding a wave maker be beneficial for Mbuna in a 75-gallon other than a spray bar from a canister and surface agitation from a sponge filter? Thanks. I don't know. I mean, if you've got a spray bar in there already and a sponge filter, I don't know if it's going to be that much more beneficial. I sometimes I'll see on Facebook some of the videos and stuff where they've got all this stuff going and the fish are just constantly fighting flow. And Mbuna are pretty, they're not as, it won't be as detrimental to them as maybe some other types of fish. But if you already got the spray bar and the sponge filter, you're getting a lot of surface agitation in a 75-gallon, I would think. So would I add one? Probably not, but I don't have any wave makers at all in any of our fish rooms.
I want a wave maker so bad. I saw one at a fish store and I wanted it. I almost
I could see you putting a wave maker on like your 12-gallon long. This is going to be awesome. And I go down there and she buys like a 400 gallons per hour thing, and I come back down the next morning. There's like this much water. The fish have all been blown onto the floor.
They're all in other tanks.
There's wet sand all over the floor. It's just the wave maker running dry.
This thing is awesome.
Yeah. Good job, man.
No, I was looking at like a little tiny one. Silly.
Okay. Daniel says, what are some reasons why my stem plants are losing all their lower leaves? They grew really well at one point and then they just stopped. That happens. I know that used to happen with our wisteria and our water sprite, especially our wisteria. It would just block the light, and the lower leaves are just like, I'm not getting enough here, and they would fall off. It could be I guess it could be also a nutrient deficiency, but I'm not a plant expert enough to know, add this and it'll be fine. I just know that sometimes it happened. It didn't, the water sprite and wisteria still lived. It just looked different after a while.
Well, you can always trim it, replant it, depending on what kind it is. But
you can try.
Yeah, I think sometimes my Bacopa will do that in certain tanks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a sad story.
It is kind of sad, because I love me some Bacopa.
All right, hold on. Grincy King? Hope I'm saying that right. Hi. I have an issue with one of my clown loaches. If it doesn't get... What is that? Snails.
Snails.
Snails, etc. Every day he goes... Other fish, he's even eaten eyes. One of the favorites. Any ideas what's on solving this? Cool. I have never had, other than the Birdmore loach, which is naturally a fairly aggressive loach, I've never had a loach get angry with other fish to the point where they were doing damage. They can be harassing sometimes, in more of a, I've always considered them to be kind of harassing in a goofy sort of way, like they'll bug fish, but never aggressive. So I wonder, was that a food aggression thing maybe? Or is it a clown loach too? Maybe you just got a clown loach with some screws loose. Well, here's the other thing too. Is it by itself? Because that potentially could be a problem, because clown loaches are fish that love to be in groups. So in our 150, we have a group of, I don't remember, 5 or 6. They behave very differently when they're in a group compared to when they're by themselves. Sometimes when they're by themselves, they can be a little bit aggressive, or they can be very reclusive and you never see them. But when they're in a group, it's like they travel in a group, they eat in a group, they do all the things in a group, they harass each other, and just be goofy fish. What's so funny?
Carolyn, along with the wave maker, I could get tiny fish surfboards.
You'd need it with the wave maker.
That would be amazing.
The worst
I could yell, "Surf's up!" in the morning.
The worst thing that could ever happen is if they make a really tiny nano wave maker. Oh, I hope they don't make that. I just put that idea in your brain, didn't I?
You would see an order for like 20
600 of them. Yeah. Like, why do we have all these tiny wave makers all over the house? Like, for my next videos.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a wave maker.
That's right. I'm going to MacGyver it myself, man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just give you a straw. And you can just stand there with a straw.
I'll figure it out. I've made weirder things. Somebody wants to know, I think it's Marlon, wants to know, do you dye your beard?
Yeah, people have asked me that before. No, it's just this is what it did. So
I don't think you'd choose to do that color combo, would you?
No, probably
like
not.
Specific? Would you stripe it or something?
And if you
really cool.
look back even in the early videos when I just had this part, this was all brown or blonde or whatever, or reddish, blondish, calico colored, and then this has just gotten. Basically, I'm a calico human being.
Yeah, I guess
this
so.
has gotten more and more gray. Now it's going here. And actually, it's starting to creep up. I noticed, like, if I don't shave my head after 3 or 4 days, this part is getting gray, which is cool. I actually want that because as soon as all of this goes gray and this, then I'm growing it all out again. And you'll look back on these videos like, I remember when you were bald. You look so weird. You still look weird, but now you got hair. I'm just waiting because I'm going full Gandalf the White when that happens. I'm still probably about 5 years away, but.
Wow, are you gonna carry his staff and stuff?
I'm gonna wear a thing, a full-on cloak.
Well, you better dress up for him then. You know, like at Christmas. Never mind.
Hey, Frank, thank you for the super chat. Let's see here at Primetime Aquatics. Hold on, Kitchener,
Ontario.
Okay, water. Water is
Canada.
291 to 600 parts per million hardness per city figures. We have a large local fish hobby. I've successfully bred even rams and cribs, rainbows, maltese, gobies, etc. Raised clown loaches to 6 or 7 inches. Okay, so you've had that water hardness, and sounds like for the most part, most of the fish have tolerated it. Surprising. Yeah, but that's good to know. That's good to know. The 291, I think, is more in line. Certainly, African cichlids at 291 parts per million would be just fine. You start getting up to that 400 to 600. That's pretty extreme. I suppose if the fish were living their lives the whole time, then yeah, that could happen. Oh my gosh, they did do the 200 likes. They really did smash that finger of the button, the like
thanks,
button
everybody.
smasher.
That's awesome.
I just noticed today, I don't know if you noticed, but on YouTube, just generally speaking, if you watch a video, you know how you have the like and dislike thing? They don't track the dislikes anymore.
No, they don't. They leave that off.
Yeah,
the
so
table.
I thought that was, and I don't generally, I don't know, I'm one of those people where if I watch a video, I usually just like it right away because I'm like, okay, I'm watching a video, they took the time to make it, and then I'm watching it. As long as it's not something that I'm like, oh my gosh, they just said the most horrible thing ever. But even then, I tend not to dislike it, so...
I'm not a disliker.
Yeah, I'm not a disliker. I'm usually just a liker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see here. We'll do a few more, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We got a few more questions in us. All right, let's see. I am scrolling. And by the way, if you have questions, do the @Primetime Aquatics, and then I will know it's a question. Chris says, I don't think I seen y'all talk about African dwarf frogs. What do y'all think about them? I have one with my betta.
What's his name? I had 2 long time ago.
Yeah.
Hermie and Cornelius. They were good little boys. They were really fun to watch. I really want them again. And there was even a picture I wanted to Instagram it. This was like months ago at pet store.
Yeah.
There was a big pile of them underneath the rock. They were all looking out. Cutest thing I ever saw.
All right, so for those of you, because you just reminded me of something, movie quote. So what is your name? Cornelius? Rupert? Any of the stupid names you give every week? Don't say the name of the movie, but that's the movie quote. Again, the movie quote is, this doesn't have your name on it. So what is your name? Cornelius? Rupert?
Oh.
Any of the stupid names you give every week?
Oh boy.
I'll give you another hint. You're selling clothes? Yes.
Yeah, really
I'm
guessed
selling
it.
some of my clothes. Already?
Yeah.
That fast?
Yeah.
Fight Club. Oh my gosh.
Wolfton Aquatics.
Yeah. Bam.
Nailed
It's
it.
like, don't give me such stupid quotes. I know those easily. But anyway, to answer your question about the dwarf frogs, we had 2.
Fluffy McCumber got it too.
Nice.
Okay.
In 125. Remember we had the 2 in the 125 for a while?
Yeah.
They were just kind of chilling out with we had them. No, at that point, we had them in with some Goodeids. That was what they were in with.
Really?
In the 125, there were Goodeids in the tank, and possibly there were some other small fish. Did that 125 at one point also have peacock gudgeons? So we had the peacock gudgeons,
yeah. Yep.
we had the Goodeids, and then we had the 2 dwarf frogs. And I know it seems odd, like you put them in a 125, yeah, but we dropped bloodworms in there, and they would go crazy for them. So I really like the African dwarf frogs. They're cool.
Aww.
They're cool in my book.
Cindy named a betta Mr. Rogers. It's adorable.
That's a nice name.
I've got so many names. I actually keep a list of names that are like just ready in the queue, ready to go because they're so fun.
You take your fish name seriously.
Yeah.
Shannon, thank you very much for the super chat. You both are the best YouTubers ever.
Shannon.
We really enjoyed meeting and talking to you both at Aquashella Dallas. Thanks for all the great info and you both pass along in your videos. And we love the live streams. Well, thank you so much. We're glad you're here. It was great meeting you too.
I know. The bucket, my bucket is right over there.
Yeah, the bucket is right there.
And one of the rocks is featured in this guy right here.
Yeah, in today's video, you featured the rock.
I did.
You featured the rock.
Beautiful.
Pretty awesome. Oink Master Supreme Forever, thank you for the super chat. Gandalf Wizard, Dr. Joanna, and Professor Jason equals my heroes. Thank you. Yeah, so then you would have to, if I went full Gandalf, then what are you going to be? You'll have to pick somebody too. But you're kind of like, you could be Gimli.
Why did I know you were just going to throw
Who is
something
this?
out?
That's my wee one.
Oh my God.
That's me wife.
But on a different note, have you ever seen the actor who plays, what's his name?
Samwise.
No.
Frodo?
Nope. The lead dwarf guy.
Oh, you mean from The Hobbit? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's actually a big dude.
He doesn't look like
he's like a big looking, like studly dude, right?
He's
kind of like a Jason Momoa looking guy.
He
and
looks
he
totally
talks
different.
like this, which makes him cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny to see them.
Thorin. Thorin Oakenshield. Thank you very much.
Thorin Oakenshield.
My brain's not working today. Usually I'm much better at my Lord of the Rings, Hobbit trivia stuff, and it's just not happening for me today. Marla said, did you say Joanna featured Dwayne Johnson? No. It was an actual real rock. Like a, geological structure, not a human being. This whole conversation has gone really sideways between Thorin Oakenshield and The Rock.
Because then if I had The Rock, I'd have to get Kevin Hart too, because they're like best friends. Have you ever seen them together? They're hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're too funny.
It is pretty crazy stuff. Let's see here.
Oh, Patricia. I see green neons. Hold on a second. We have a green neon question. Okay. I just got my green neon tetras. Congratulations. How exciting. But noticed one has a light tan speck on its head near its eye. Is this possibly parasites?
Light tan speck on its head by its eye. I don't know. I would probably have to see it, because sometimes fish will do weird things where they get a discoloration that will either be there forever or just go away.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really worried about it, you can isolate it but I don't know if that's anything. Just to give you an idea with the green neons, Joanna asked me today, she's like, what fish do I still have in the quarantine tanks for these scapes come up? So I gave her the big list. One of which is she's still got like 15 green neons in one of these quarantine tanks. She's like,
well, I know about that one.
I have more?
No, I didn't. I know I've got them. I was looking for other ones.
Oh, okay.
I thought I had a couple other collections that I don't.
Yeah.
I must have dreamed it.
The quarantine
They're
tank
just
collection.
ready, waiting in the wings with their little suitcases, ready to go.
Oink Master Forever. How about Arwen? Yeah. Arwen is the
what's her name? Liv Tyler, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Whatever happened to her?
She rides a horse, so she has a horse. And
well, they all ride horses. So does the other one from the
Hobbit. She kicks major
Hobbit.
butt, and she wears like a cool, like long white robe and stuff, and a cool necklace.
And then you can say things in a whispering, crying way. She is.
Best crier.
You have to admit.
Yeah.
There is nobody that cries quite like Arwen in Lord of the Rings. It's just the best cry ever.
But she does it really good in the Hulk too.
Oh, she
cries there too.
Yeah, I think whenever there's a casting, like, we need somebody who has the most elegant crying.
Call it Liv.
But yeah, I don't think she knows how to ugly cry.
No.
Like, I think in real life, if something bad happens, she's just a tear. It's just first, it's the eye watering, and then the one tear, And that's it. There's no ugly cry going on there. Right?
Oh,
where I'd be like, I still my toe.
Stop.
Yeah. Like when I smashed my little finger here. I'm just sitting there in the middle of the gym crying. All these guys like, no, I wasn't. But it'd be pretty funny, right?
Oh, flashback
my youngest
to
son,
grade school
my
there.
13-year-old, be like, come on, Dad.
Come on, man.
You're embarrassing me, man. ABC Aquatic Biotope Creations. That's a cool name. Thank you for the super chat.
Yeah.
Hey, Primetime Aquatics. I'm new to your channel and love your videos. I'm a North American native fish keeper and working on my own channel and just want to say hi and show some fish fam love. Well, thank you so much for being here. Love native fish. There are, I think, for those of us living in North America, we neglect sometimes the idea of, or just the consideration of some native fish because they can be really interesting. I always tell a story about my yellow perch that I had.
Yep.
There are some amazing goby type fish, darters. I mean, they're actually darters that are ridiculously cool colored throughout North America. And then you could always go larger, like some of the striped bass and stuff. You got like a monster tank. Those are really pretty too. So a lot of cool fish. Let's take a couple more. Let's do a couple more and then we'll call it a night. Zach Thor, you guys are too funny. Too funny. Better chill out over there. Let's see here.
Wacky.
You're a real whack job. I'm gonna fire you off the roof. Now nobody's gonna know those quotes. Man, you're a real whack job. And then I fired him off the roof. It wasn't TV. This is going back to the 90s. I wonder if anybody will know.
Fired him off the roof.
Yeah. Man, you're just a real whack job. And then I fired him off the roof. They said too many bad words, so I can't really do any. And I don't really remember a lot of the quotes, but yeah. Well, let's see here.
I don't know.
Deontay, the drone guy, will a Bella shark outgrow 29? Yes. Yes, very, very quickly.
Before your very eyes.
Yeah, right. Home Alone, Alice says.
I was going to guess that was going to be my guess.
It's not Home Alone, though. It was
because you actually sounded like Joe Pesci.
I know, and it wasn't, because the guys kind of sounded like him.
Yeah.
I'll wait
the
a few
Wet Bandits.
seconds. No, it's not the Wet Bandits. But anyway, the 29-gallon Bella shark, we had Bella sharks in our 150, and I regret to this day, there are some regrets that I have, and that is when I first got the 150, at that time it was the largest tank I'd ever gotten. It's still the largest tank I ever had volume-wise. And when I first got that tank, this was really, there wasn't a lot of information on the internet back then. And I went and got Bella sharks and tinfoil barbs. They were very small. And the guy at the pet store was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. They only grow to the size of the tank anyway. That's a big tank. That's not true. So if you look at videos, even as recently before we lost those fish, when we had the water change debacle, they were all well over I wouldn't say well over. The Bella shark was about 12 inches. The tinfoil barbs were around 13-ish inches or so. So here's the issues with Bella sharks and tinfoil barbs. I put them kind of in similar sort of criteria. If you get the right size tank, especially for like the tinfoil barbs, they will grow every bit the 14 to 15 inches they're supposed to grow and be very tall bodied. The Bella sharks should be about a foot, sometimes larger.
If it's a baby now, how much time?
If it's, well, there's going to be some growth stunting going on there. So if you could have a fish that's easily 6 to 8 inches in that 29-gallon within, I don't know, 8 months to a year. But there's a bigger problem there, and that bigger problem is for things like Bella sharks and tinfoil barbs, they need to be schooling fish, right? They need to be in large groups. So I don't think it's talked about enough, in particular with those two fish, but you should be keeping them the way that you would keep neon tetras, the way that you would keep smaller barbs, cherry barbs, or checkerboard barbs or something, where it's like, okay, I've got this fish, and if you really want to see them shine and thrive, I need 10 to 15 of them. And to do that properly, you need a very, very large tank, because not only are they large, right, at least 12 inches, not only are they going to be kept in a big group, but they're also extremely active. And so once you can put all that together, if I were keeping them again, I don't personally think I would even attempt to do it unless I had a 10-foot tank that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 gallons, right? To really do it right, to really give them the justice that they deserve, I'd probably do an 800-gallon tank and keep a dozen of them. So,
all right, Noel just got here. Just in time.
Hello.
What movie quote? You need to repeat it.
Oh, it wasn't a movie. So, oh my gosh, Chuck! Sorry, I screamed. I'm sorry. I just probably blasted everybody's ears away.
Jerky Boys?
Chuck got it. Dude, I didn't do a good job of quoting that at all. And you know I left out a few words when I said, and they fired him off the roof. Chuck got it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everybody who's wearing headphones, and I'm sorry for everybody on the replay who's going to be wearing headphones. That's like what you did to me in Dallas a few weeks ago. Yeah, the Jerky Boys. We used to sit around in our youth and just, oh my gosh, we'd laugh and laugh.
Is that like a show? What is that?
They were on they were comedians. So we had them on cassette tape, but they were comedians, and what they would do is they would do like
vaguely,
like the
very vaguely
prank calls or whatever, and they would just go on and on and on, and boy. I don't recommend them anymore because I mean for people who don't like that kind of talk, it was not appropriate talk, but they were pretty funny back in my youth. I probably listen to it now and I'm like, oh, that wasn't nearly as funny, but it's kind of like when you watch some of those old TV shows and you're like, huh, why did I like this back then? Okay, one more question. Let's do one more.
You know, Killer Kitty 08 says Chuck is now the new movie title champion. I think everybody should get a quote like champion badge for every
I think
for
so.
Every live stream.
Hold on,
right?
Zach said please answer. Oh my gosh, did I miss a super chat here? Zach said please answer my super chat. Zach, all right, so dude, hold on, let me scroll back down. I don't know where it went. So hold on a second, because I don't want to ignore that. What name were you looking for? So, see if now hold on, now I lost his thing. Hold on a second here. I'm still looking. I thought it said Zach. I thought Zach said, please answer my super chat.
Zach?
Yes. Isn't that what I saw? Hold on. I'm scrolling. I will find it. Hold on. Wait 1 second. Sorry for the delay. Yeah. Have a good time there. Just Zach, please answer my super chat. Can you just put it in just put an @Primetime Aquatics and just type it in again real quick so I can.
Did you get Sid Moore's?
I did, right? That was the.
I'm new to the hobby. I assumed my 55-gallon tank. Okay.
Yep, that was the one
That's as far as I can go.
Yeah. So, it must have been an early one. I'm sorry if I missed it. Aww. Yeah, just go ahead and leave it down there. Just do an @Primetime Aquatics, and then I'll try to answer that before we wrap things up. Oh, here we go. Killer Kitty 08, thank you so much. This was Zach's super chat. Best soil for a Wallstead dirt planted tank. Oh man. So full transparency, I haven't done a dirted tank, so I don't know.
Father Fish sort of question.
Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, I don't know. I haven't done dirted tanks because it's just not something that's been on our radar, because we've always done a standard sand and here's the reason why. With the dirted tanks, I like to make sure that whatever tank I'm setting up will be good if I want to change the fish around. So if I have a fish that even digs a little bit, what I don't want is that fish to go through my cap, my sand cap, and then start getting into the dirt, or at that point the mud, and get that all into the water and cause water quality issues there. So the other issue that can sometimes happen with a dirted tank is the depletion of nutrients, and then it's like, oh my gosh, once you have to clean it out, that can be a bigger problem. So what we typically do to ensure plant growth is we will do most of the time an inert substrate, whether that's gravel or sand. You look at all these tanks back here, they're growing well. If you look throughout our fish room, we've got a ton of planted tanks, and we'll just put root tabs in, and that way we know that's easy to replace. And then we really rely a lot on fish waste to constantly feed the plants as well. So that's why we haven't done the dirted tanks. But I'm sorry I missed it, because that was not intentional. And I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer in terms of the soil. But I'm just not one who's done that before. Okay. What do you say? Are we want to wrap it up for the evening? So thank you once again for everybody, for all the super chats and all of the stickers, and for our moderators who are holding down the fort.
Thank you.
And for everybody with all the great questions. As I always say, if we didn't answer your question, we don't try to like intentionally miss them or anything like that. Write your questions down throughout the week, and when you come here on a Wednesday evening, this is the place where we try to answer lots of them. So,
and if we don't, there's a lot of people who will.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people in this group that
people.
know some stuff, that's for sure. So we will be back next week because we don't leave for the OCA until Friday. So we'll be here next week. We don't plan to miss any more live streams the rest of the year because that really stinks. We don't like that.
It's a bummer.
So we will see you hopefully next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Write your questions down. Bring them next week too. Appreciate you being here, and we will hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Ending the stream.